Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're going to talk about a investment property and an investment property where the deal has fallen through in the recent weeks. So you guys are probably aware that I obviously focus a lot on stock market content. That's what normally the YouTube channel is about. But I do also have investment properties and I don't really talk about it too much on the YouTube channel. But today, Sunday, thought this would be a good video for Sunday. A little bit more of a chilled video as well. Just talking about things, talking about property, a little bit of a change, rather than the normal kind of me shouting stock market content at you, and a bit of a more of a personal update as well. I think overall. So yeah, most of you guys are aware. I am more of a stock market guy. I do prefer investing into stocks. I am more knowledgeable in buying stocks, but I do like investing into property. I do own a couple of properties, and when I do look at property versus stocks, with stocks, like I said, it's so much easier to buy, so much easier to sell. Obviously, you got your ISA. That's an absolute mega benefit to us. Is that that's one of the best things that you should be using is that tax allowance that we do get every year with the ISA. And if you want to buy a stock, you don't have to put a set amount in. You can, if you want to start off small, you're going small. If you want to go big, you got all that flexibility with stocks. So, obviously as well, I'd say that you get better returns from the stock market. For me personally, I don't know if that's just because I'm more knowledgeable, but you look at this year to date. I'm up 41% year to date, which I don't think I would be able to achieve in the property market. And by the way, I'm going to talk about property from a buy-to-let point of view. Might be different from like a flipping properties point of view, but I once did a property flip, and oh my days, like everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and the cost just absolutely spiraled. And it wasn't like a thing where you could go, oh, you know what, I won't pay for it this month, I'll pay for it next month. You can't, because you're on such a time frame to get this property flipped. So you're just eating your profit if you just sit there as well. And then it knocks on everybody else that has jobs to do. So yeah, I did that. I'm doing it again is only what I'm going to say. So I'm doing this from like a buy-to-let point of view. With the property point of view, like there's a lot of, or buy-to-let point of view, I would say there's a bit more of a risk, that it's not as easy to buy things, sell things. You have to pay a big amount of sum of money up as well. You have that risk of that tenant that's potentially an awful tenant. But the reason why I like property, after all that negative stuff, the reason why I like property is that you're going to get that money at the end of the month. And that's really nice, especially with the stock market stuff, is that, it's great this year. We made a lot of money this year in the stock market, but there's going to be time frames where the stock market goes down. And in that time frame where the stock market goes down, there's going to be less times where you're trimming things with profit because things have gone down. And I realized this when I went through the stock market crash in 2022, when we were down for like a year and a half. And you don't have as much money there to go buy things. You need the money keep coming in to go buy things when that happens. Now, lucky for me, obviously, I work full time, so that wage was coming in. But another thing that was really nice is the property investments, because I knew I was getting that monthly income every month, and then that allowed me to go and buy more into stocks when the stocks dipped, and having that, new confident that money was coming in. The other thing, and this is going to get slightly morbid for a Sunday, so I do apologise for it, but the thing with property as well is that I kind of know it's going to be there, and if anything goes wrong, like if anything happens to me, my family with the stock market stuff won't have a clue what to do. They wouldn't know which stocks to buy, which ones to sell, which ones to leave running. They would have to just sell all my stocks investments realistically. Whereas with the property side of it, if anything was to happen to me, I'd be fairly confident they'd be able to manage the property stuff and just realise that they've just got to let it run and let the income come in. And as well, if something happened to me and my income went away, the property investment money would be there to still support the family. And I know that sounds really depressing, and I don't know if I should think like that, but I do. And that's a bit of a nice safety net to know it's there if anything was to happen as well. So that's why diversifying into property investment is really good. So I do like a little bit of property investment from that point of view. Now, I said to myself that if I had a good year in the stock market, and it has been a good year, we're up 41% year to date. If you look at the eToro portfolio, we're up 35% year to date. I said to myself, if I have another good year and I sit on a nice cash pile, which I'm lucky to be in that position, I would go buy another property. Now, I was going to do it at the start of the year, but then we had the tariff situation and I was like holding off, like, oh, we'll see what happens. I did buy a few things when, in April time, but since then, cash pile's been ticking up nicely, and especially right now, the cash pile is really nice at the moment. So I thought now was a good time to go buy a investment property. Now, a few weeks ago, it looked like I was maybe on the path of buying this, and then the deal fell through. And I thought I'd actually say this today because I didn't know this. I didn't know this happened in some investment properties, and I had to walk away from the deal. And I thought I'd just share this with you guys if any of you guys find this useful. Some of you guys might know about this because obviously it might be something a little bit more common in the in property investment side of it. And people that do this all the time might know about it. But obviously, I thought I'd share it with you guys. So I was looking to buy property, and I had to pull out the deal, basically. And I think I was actually looking at a flat, and I think this applies to like more newer flats and greedy ground rents, basically. It seems like a lot of these newer flats are being built, and the land that is being built on the ground rent has been built on land where there's basically greedy ground rent going on. And what has happened is basically the law changed in 2022 to stop this situation happening. So they have basically changed it to the amount of ground rent on properties after 2022 cannot be, which they call now peppercorn rates, effectively £0 or less than £250 or 0.1% of the property. So that's stopped this situation happening on newer properties. But it seems like there was a lot of greedy ground rents that took advantage of this between like the year 2000 and up to 2022. And this is why this law had to be brought in. Now, the problem is the law doesn't change the situation for the properties between 2000 and 2022, where there's greedy ground rent situations. So this flat that I was looking to buy, basically, there was this situation where basically, since it being built, after so many years, the ground rent doubled. And then basically the ground rent after that went up every like 10 years in line with inflation or RPI. And obviously, if you're seeing inflation at the moment, it's gone up a little bit in the last few years. And all of a sudden, this ground rent now is £600 or something. And then even in another 10, 20 years, it's going to go up a significant amount again, another 50%. So you could have ground rent in a few years' time up to £900, which is a lot of ground rent to obviously be paying. Now, that's not even the biggest issue. So that was already an issue. And I kind of like went, not happy with this situation. This is where it gets really tricky. So if ground rent on a flat is above 0.01%, which is obviously where they changed this law a few years ago, mortgage lenders do not lend. If you want to get a buy-to-let mortgage, they do not lend if the ground rent is above the 0.1% of the value of the property. Now, obviously, at £600 ground rent, your property you've got to be buying is a significant amount. It's got to be £600,000. Is that right? 6,000? Yeah. So at £600 ground rent, your property value has to be £600,000, which for a flat you're not paying £600 for unless it's a flat in Buckingham Palace or something. So it just makes basically any significant ground rents, absolutely extortionate. Now, this is also where it went downhill. So then I was at the point of view of going, right, that's tricky. You can't get a buy-to-let mortgage on it. Do you buy the flat outright? And to pay such a significant amount up front, do I want to be doing that? I don't know. So I thought I'll consider it. And then getting further down the line, what happened then is I realised that the ground rent is that high that it basically qualifies the ground rent owner to have an AST. Now, basically, this means that there's basically it creates a legal binding contract, which basically creates like a rental agreement between the ground rent and the person who owns the flat. And basically, because the rent is so high, if you don't pay the ground rent on time, and I think it is if you're 21, and this one in particular, if you were 21 days late paying the ground rent, the person who owns the land, can claim the flat back off the owner, which was mental. So you pay, let's say the flat was 100,000, right? I pay 100,000 for the flat. If I somehow miss the ground rent, which I hope would never happen, but sometimes it could happen. Let's say I get into a car crash. God, this is a morbid video today. Let's say I get into a car crash, right? And you're so busy about dealing with this car crash situation. It just so happens to be when this ground rent is. You get so taken up about what's happening on, or you missed a reminder, or the payment somehow bounces from your payment and you don't realise. And in 21 days' time, the person that owns the ground can come back and then take the flat off you after you paid 100,000 just because you were late doing the payment by 21 days. Insane, absolutely insane. And I was like, okay, that's a deal breaker. Like, we're already talking about ground rent that's extortionate, but because there was this contract in place, I didn't know that was a thing. Like I said, some guys that do property all the time, you might have heard of this, but I could not believe that this was a situation. And obviously, clearly, it must be quite a common thing in more newer built flats is this situation happening, and that's why obviously they've had to change the law. But the problem is that if you have one of these at the moment, the absolute nightmare. And then obviously for the person selling the flat, I mean, who's going to buy that? Who's going to buy a property that if you're late on the ground rent, you can have it taken off you? How much money you paid for, and then snap of fingers because you were late on payment. Absolutely bonkers. So I have I had to walk away from the deal, which was disappointing because apart from that, it looks actually I was quite happy with it. Apart from obviously that situation that was with the flat. Overall, I guess where that kind of leads me from a property point of view, it's tough. I'm not really seeing anything out there that really takes my fancy. And I do look at the money that you're having to pay up at the moment for some of these properties. And the thing as well is the governments at the moment are making it so much harder for landlords. It's nowhere near where it was a few years ago. The changes they're making are just putting more and more costs onto landlords, and the risk with the landlords. The tenants getting more and more powers, which people think in hindsight can be a good thing, but also it's not a great thing because you get more and more power. Less power to evict, or you only take one bad tenant to ruin a rental property, and it's a nightmare. And, I always see landlords get a lot of stick, and I always think it's not always fair. There is some bad landlords out there, but there's good landlords out there. Landlords that are creating rental properties for people to live in. But the problem is they get painted with a bad name, and even the government are like, oh, you're bad, and it's like, no, the reason why is because their house prices and things are hard because of greedy landlords, and it's not. The reason why is because you're not building enough properties. You built enough properties, would be all right, but that's the reason why. And then because some of these properties are bought by landlords, they're greedy, they're stopping someone from living there. Well, they're not. They're renting it out so someone can go and live in there eventually that wants to live, that's right for someone that doesn't want to buy a house. And I look at some of the changes that the government are making to some of these properties, where whatever it is, the ability to deduct things from financial income, or some of these energy certificates they keep bringing in, and oh yeah, that's really great, we'll bring this energy certificate in, and then all of a sudden the landlord has to put the rent up, and greedy landlords are putting the rent up, and well, what did you expect? The landlord has to go put a brand new boiler in for your changing the energy situation, and you expect them just to kind of eat it up? No chance. It's just stupid. But the government is stupid. We saw that with the NI changes in summertime. Oh yeah, we just expect companies to pay the extra NI. No, they're going to pass it on. Stop living in dream world where people think they're just going to absorb these costs, have to take on these risks. It's absolutely bonkers. Sorry, we're going on a bit of a political rant here, but overall, it's a tricky one because I would like to add another property into the portfolio, but the risks that are just increasing are just putting me off, and to find the right property is just harder, and the changes that are being made to the property side of it as a buy-to-let or a landlord are just once again making it harder and putting me off. And it's a shame really, because I would like to add another one in, but I just look at the risks that are coming up at the moment, and some of the investments that you have to put in, and I think I'm better off sticking into stocks. But like I said, I would like one because it isn't, the stocks are great, but it is, it's easy saying that after the years that we've been, and that isn't always going to happen. And then when we do have the years that are a little bit less, great for us, I will think I wish I had another property investment that was paying that, that monthly income. So yeah, for right now, we were close, but it's the deal's fallen through. We'll see what comes up in the next kind of couple of months if anything interesting does kind of come up. I have been offered an opportunity to invest into a property flip if I do follow through with that, which I think I am going to do because that would kind of see me over for like the next 2 months. So I guess that would probably rule out any kind of additional property for the next 2 months. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on it and we'll see what happens. But I just wanted to update you guys, just a little bit different, bit of a chill video, talk about property a little bit rather than just stocks, and also helping some of you guys as well. Sometimes we talk about stocks so much that good to talk about property, but also the things, some things there that obviously are not to keep an eye out for if you are going into property market. Not always easy as plain sailing as what people always make it out to be. There's always these problems that you come up with as well in the property game. So yeah, hope it was useful anyway, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great Sunday, and I'll see you on Monday tomorrow, and we'll do a week ahead video for you guys. Thanks for watching. See you in a bit, guys.